It is so good to have you on board today. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for inviting me for this wonderful interview.
Okay, so today, everybody, today we will be talking to Hemma Sood, our Frontlist, this week's author of the week, and her book is just released on 14th May. It is called Tijara's Mystery Codes. So I'm gonna give a brief introduction about Hemma Sood. Hemma Sood was born in New Delhi and studied in Bangalore. She uses a pen name for her books and workshops, Hemma Myers Sood. At 29, she released her first book, The Eternal Ocean of Brahma, which conveys the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita imbibed through intuitive perceptions of the waves of the ocean. A revised version of this book called The Oceanic Gita was released in October 2020. Some of her early books published by Inmark publishers are currently being revised. Her sixth book, Karmic Chords, is a poignant narrative of the author's personal loss of her sibling. The Karmic City trilogy, released in 2015 and 2019, comprises of Karmic City, the city of Lord Brahma, Karmic City, the city of Lord Vishnu, and Karmic City, the city of Lord Shiva. Hemma has successfully completed a course on writing fiction from the prestigious Oxford University. And her ninth book, Tijara's Mystery Codes, is uniquely interwoven with historical fiction, murder, palace intrigue, and clairvoyance. I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing it correctly. So thank you so much, ma'am, for coming on board today.
Thank you.
Okay, so we just gonna start with the interview session then. My first question would be, how is the story of Mahabharata connected to the events that happened in Tijara Fort?
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. That's a wonderful question because many will be wondering how the Mahabharata, which happened 5,000 years ago, has come into this book. So while I was researching for the book, I discovered that the ancestors of the Tijara Fort Palace fought in the Kurukshetra war. And they were fighting on the side of the Kauravas against the mighty Pandavas. So the ancestor, his name was Maharaj Susharma, and his brothers, they are actually infamous because they are the ones who led Arjuna away when Abhimanyu was trapped in the Chakravyuh. And in a sense, because they participated in that and they kind of challenged Arjuna and, deceptively led him very far away, history does not give them, a very good name. And thus, this part of Tijara's fort ancestry is not really spoken about in a very good light. But yes, because I was kind of writing three different timelines, I have brought in the aspect of the Chakravyuh even in the other two timelines.
Okay, so since you've told me that the information of Abhimanyu trapped in the Chakravyuh and all,
Yes.
it was not talked about before. So where did you get this information? All the information regarding this, because it is not.
So this is actually there in the Mahabharata. It's very much a part of the Mahabharata. It's just that since Maharaj Sharma has a very small role compared to the Kauravas and Pandavas, it is not highlighted. But yes, he's a friend of Duryodhan. And in this book, we also find out that, when the Pandavas were in the 13th year of the Agyatvas, that is, they had to live incognito. They chose to live very, very close to Tijara. They stayed in a place, Virat Nagar, which is the present day Alwar, which is about 40 or 50 kilometers from Tijara.
Oh.
And the entire episode has happened in and around Tijara, the way they were hiding and then they stayed incognito, all that. So actually what happened is that just about 2 weeks before the 13th year ended, one of the commander of chief of Viratnagar, he took a fancy to Draupadi. Now, Draupadi was living as the Maharani's maid servant, but of course, he took a fancy to her and he tried to molest her, and she called Bhim, and then, of course, Bhim just killed him. So that started, kind of murmurs, and Maharaj Sharma informed Duryodhan about this. So then they suspected that, okay, the Pandavas may be hiding here. But by the time they reached and started the war, the 2 weeks had finished. So actually, the 13th year was successfully completed. It was like, literally a touch and go, but yes. But they did have a battle after that, which Arjuna was very victorious. Not the actual Kurukshetra, but just after the 13th year.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to ask, how did you come up with the story of Amrita, a potent anti-aging elixir?
So this is something which I kind of mystically imbibed, and the information that I received was that when Maharaj Pandu, was cursed by the Rishi, and then he just abdicated the throne and he gave the throne to his elder brother Dhritarashtra, and he and the two queens, Maharani Kunti and Maharani Madri, went to the forest and they lived a very quiet life, and they kind of dedicated their life, to living in seclusion and in the forest. At that time, Maharani Kunti informed Maharaj Pandu that she had a boon, that if she invoked a god, she would get a son from the god. So then she invoked the three gods, and got three sons, Yudhishthir, Bhima, and Arjuna. So Maharaj Pandu said that, please invoke for Maharani Madri also once. Invoke for her. So Maharani Kunti said, of course, I will invoke, but I will only invoke once. So Maharani Madri was very shrewd and she invoked the Ashwin twins for two reasons. One is that if she invokes the twins, then she would get twins, because she had only one chance. And the second is that they were the gods of Ayurveda. And being the gods of Ayurveda, they had in their possession the mystical Amrita. So she invoked and she pleaded for them to give her the mystical Amrita and the formula so that she could help Maharaj Pandu regain his vigor and regain his vitality. So this is how the story of the Amrita begins. But what happens is that since Maharaj Pandu was cursed, finally a curse cannot be revoked and Maharaj Pandu dies. So the book starts with Maharani Madri seated on the funeral pyre. And, she's a Maharani, or she's grown up in luxury, whether it was in her father's house or in the husband's house. She's only known about riches and wealth. But when she's sitting on the funeral pyre, it's a very macabre ending. She's going to be burnt alive. And even if she wants to run away, she cannot. So in that moment, just before the flames devour her, she sees the Amrita and she curses it. And, and she says that whoever partakes of it will die within a year. And because of that curse, this entire knowledge and information of the Amrita and everything was suppressed. And the royal physician was from Alwar. So he kind of ensured that everything was secretly maintained and passed down over generations. But the knowledge, the formula, everything remained, but it was not made, or it was not kind of partaken of again, because everyone feared the curse.
Thank you so much, ma'am. There was loads of information I just got from one answer, from one question. Okay, so you've mentioned three different timelines in your book, and all stories are set in Tijara City. So you could have chosen some other historical city. So why did you choose Tijara?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And let me just put it this way, that I would say that Tijara chose me because I really had no clue I was going to write this book. It all began in November 2015. I visited Tijara Fort Palace because it was under restoration and it's now a luxury hotel. I was staying in Delhi, and the distance from Delhi to Tijara is about 2 hours. And we had some friends. They were a Japanese couple. So the three of us were going. Early morning, we left for Tijara. And, when we neared, since it's on a hill, you can see from quite a distance. The fort is on a hill. So as we were driving towards the fort, we were very excited, wondering how it will look like. We had seen pictures and we were busy talking. None of us noticed that the driver had taken a left turn onto a mud road. And then suddenly, when it was really bumpy, we asked him, and then he said, see, this is my first trip to Tijara, but I was instructed that the last part is a mud road. And I saw this, so I took the turn. So we said, okay, because even it was our first trip. So we went a little ahead, but then we realized it's a dead end and we turned around with quite a bit of difficulty. And as we were going back on that same mud road, the car just sank into the sand. It was, soft like a desert sand, and we were stranded. So initially we got out and we put stones under the tires and we tried to rev up the engine, but nothing worked. There was a platform nearby which was shady, so we sat there while the driver actually connected to the Fort Palace, and they sent a tractor, and the tractor actually pulled the car out because it had totally got sunk into the sand. And then, of course, we took a lot of pictures. We roamed around the Fort Palace. We enjoyed everything. And then I left and, forgot all about that incident. And about 3 weeks later, I just got the idea like a download, and it just kept flowing through me. And of course, it started with that incident of being stranded on the road,
It
and
must
that's
have been
how.
an adventurous trip for you.
Yes, absolutely. And as then, I got the storyline. I started reading up on internet. I discovered more about the Fort Palace and when it was built. So that is how I then set all the three timelines, because they all are aspects of the Tijara Fort Palace over centuries.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. And it was such a fun answer to give.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so is every fact contained in this book true or fictitious, as it is historical fiction?
Yes. So let me put it this way, that there are three timelines. The first timeline is from the Mahabharata era, and everything that I have written about and spoken and portrayed in different parts of the book is absolutely authentic. It is perfectly narrated. The second timeline is about the 19th century, when the Rao Raja Balwant Singh actually built the Fort Palace. His elder brother, Maharaj Vinay Singh, was continuously trying to kill him, elder step brother actually, because he wanted to usurp his power, his lands, and everything. So the second timeline is about the two brothers and how, Maharaj Balwant Singh was continuously under threat of being poisoned or of being killed. And finally, what happens is that he does succumb to the Amrita, which is poisoned, and while dying, again, he curses the Amrita because it never struck him that the Amrita would be poisoned. So I would say, thus, the Amrita is twice cursed, and then once again, the entire knowledge of the Amrita was suppressed and hidden. So the first and second timeline is very authentic, and they would come under historical fiction. The third timeline is set in 1977. It's about Maharaj Mahadev Singh and his royal family, his queen, and three children. He has an elder twin daughter and a younger twin son and a younger son. And this story, which is set in 1977, is completely fictional, but it forms the main storyline of the book. And it's also a murder mystery. And what happens is that the Maharaj wants to hold on to his throne. He doesn't want to hand it over to his son, who has been named the crown prince. His daughter also wishes to take the throne. So it's a lot of struggle, and always, in royalty, there's intrigue, there's deception, there's treachery. So the Maharaj gets an idea that, this Amrita is there, and maybe the curse is a myth, and maybe, if I take the Amrita, I can prolong my life, I can enjoy a healthy life. So he very quietly and covertly gets in a brilliant Ayurvedic doctor, Dr. Sanjay Kirti, to concoct the elixir and start partaking of it. But about in 6-7 months, the doctor is mysteriously killed, and no one can find out what happened and why he was killed. So the New Delhi police send in one of their best detectives, and he is the deputy superintendent, Siddhartha. He comes in the guise of a interior designer called Sid, and he is psychic and clairvoyant. So the third timeline is a combination of a murder mystery, suspense, intuition, clairvoyance. So it's a combination of different genres.
Okay, so if I want to read three genres, if I'm interested in reading three genres, I can read only one book.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a wonderful perception. Yes, it's a combination, and every chapter starts with the Mahabharata, then it goes on to the second timeline, and then the main storyline.
Okay, so
And
I'm
in
really
yes,
okay, okay. So I'm
and
really
in
very
the
interested in
end,
reading about
yes,
historical fiction and Mahabharata. I'm really intrigued into reading this book.
yes,
Okay,
definitely, definitely.
and you were saying something now.
Yes, and in the end, just before the climax, the three timelines connect together. That's
Okay.
also a wonderful part. Yes.
Okay, that is so interesting, I must say. I will surely be reading that. Okay, so moving on, the book is classified according to the days of the Hindu calendar. So, how did you write the draft of the whole story?
Yes. So as I said, that incident where I was stranded on the mud road, it commenced. And then as I was writing on the entire book, I tended to lean towards, the Hindu tradition, because the Mahabharata is steeped in our traditions. It portrays our culture. And I thought that, when we look at our calendars, we have, of course, the regular Western calendars, but we also have our Indian calendars, which give us the days of the week in the traditional Sanskrit style. And somewhere that kind of rang, it was kind of in alignment with what I was writing. And I just thought that it would give, a depth to it, which is a part of history. And it seemed somehow very right and in synchronity with the book. So that's why I chose to write it in that way, because I was also writing about something which was 5,000 years ago. And that was the time when, our Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday did not exist. And it is something a very recent, kind of invention, I would say. Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I really, it is my personal question. So what are your
Yes.
next projects? I mean, personally, I feel like you are very intrigued and interested in writing about historical fiction. So is there any other genre you would like to try?
Yes, so actually, my first 8 books actually more of New Age philosophy, spirituality. This was wonderful because I loved combining historical fiction with spirituality, with intuition, because that is something which is very much a part of my personality. I am a psychic medium, a healer, a clairvoyant. So all this comes very naturally to me. And there is another book which is kind of, I would say, about 60-70% complete. It's still not ready yet to send to publishers. That is a little more complicated than this, because that is about era which is 10,000 years ago, and during the Atlantis. It was a city which submerged, and it is my belief that, the Bermuda Triangle and all the mystique of the Bermuda Triangle is nothing but all the magnificent crystals of the Atlantis era, which are creating those whirlpools. So, of course, I've not written about that, but I've written about it is set in very much today's contemporary timing, about a young couple in Goa, and the girl, the main heroine of the story, she kind of has this connection to the Atlantis. And then I've also brought in Dwarka, because Atlantis and Dwarka are both submerged civilizations. Both of them ended when the cities went underwater. So that is some correlation which I'm bringing out. And yes, I enjoy working on that. And it's a wonderful experience of moving in and out of different timelines, different centuries, and even different millenniums. Yeah.
Are you also thinking about writing on romance or psychology, if I'd say?
No. So the thing is, romance is not so much my forte, but in this book, Tijara's Mystery Course, there is a bit of illicit affairs and, very much where the princess tries to control everyone through sexual favors. But psychology kind of comes in the next book, which is The Atlantis, because there is a lot of tug of war, I would say, mental and different kind of. I would say intuition is more like my style, and that is what comes in. Yeah, but basically, I don't write. I have not yet written romance. It's a more light-hearted genre, and definitely, I know it's more mainstream. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's got to come, because for me, I always write from the heart. I always write what flows through me. So maybe one day, if the
It should
story
not be
comes,
forced. Yeah.
yes. And like I never really planned to be an author. It all began, I would say, about 3 decades ago. So I grew up in Bangalore, and my cousins would live in Chennai. So it's very close by. We used to go quite often, and I loved going to Chennai because of the ocean. I enjoy swimming, and any occasion to go there. And this was like one early Sunday morning. My cousin sister and I went for a morning walk, and then the waves of the ocean on that morning walk began explaining the shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita to me. And when I saw that synchronicity and I imbibed that knowledge, I then started, writing. And that's how my first book was written, where the waves of the ocean taught me the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
So I've always felt that destiny has given me the content and then, taken me towards
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah. It all happens for a reason.
Absolutely. There are no accidents in the universe. It's all divinely orchestrated. We just have to understand our role.
Yeah. And everything is interrelated, I feel,
Yes,
interconnected. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
And in your book also, everything is
Yes,
interconnected.
yes, and it's very important to enjoy what you do, because when you enjoy doing it, you never feel the time, you never feel kind of, I always look forward to sitting and writing, and touch wood, I've never experienced a writer's block. It's always the opposite. I just have knowledge flowing through me. And I also believe that, when I start every day or whenever I write, I never know what I'm going to write about. I just sit there and I receive whatever comes through. And very often, like when I pick up a magazine or a book and I open to a page, I read a paragraph which is so relevant to what I'm writing. It's almost as if those lines were meant to be read by me. I've experienced that so often, and then either they come into the book or they influence my thought flow. And that's why I feel, that the block would not be there, because it's all coming in from higher realms.
Yeah.
I
Coming
also do,
naturally to you.
yes, coming very naturally. And I also do a lot of channeling, which is receiving information and messages from higher realms. That is something also which I am now looking to publish in the in the new future. I do have plans of publishing that, and that is something which is very different. It's more in I would say the US or UK publishers. Not so much of the Indian publishers are doing that. So maybe I'll get whatever is destined for the book.
Best of luck
Yeah,
on
thank you.
everything you do, ma'am. And
Thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much. Thank you so much on coming on board with us and talking to us. I mean, to be very honest, whenever I talk to you on WhatsApp, also seeing all those emojis also gives me so many positivity. It's like you're always very content and composed and calm. So
Yeah.
it reflects. Yeah. So
Okay.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.